ay hindi maganda. Sabihin sa magulang at sa bahay muna. Sa kalye, be the kid! Best friend natin ang masuotin kahit saan. Ingatan ang kamay, maghugas pag galing sa labas. Sa school, be the kid! Sa pila, wag dikit-dikit. Dumistansya para iwas sakit. Laging open ang window para maganda ang airflow. 3Ps, tandaan, bakuna, bayanihan, be the kid! Halina at magtulungan. Ikaw at
Ating tanawin kinabukasan pagtibayin. Piliin mo gawin pag-asa ay yakapin. Emosyon ang kaya manalang kahit di naman. Isang pangarap ang tutupad mo pagsisikapan ng lahat. Kaya mo yun, kaibigan.
Mabuhay Pilipinas at isang magandang araw sa ating lahat, lalo't higit sa ating mga regional and division information officers, gayon din sa mga school information coordinators na gaya ko na kasama natin ngayon. Welcome to our second EduAction Town Hall Series. Layunin po ng programang ito na maihatid sa lahat ang programs, communication and information initiatives at iba pang updates at kaganapan tungkol sa kagawaran ng edukasyon.
Good morning nga po sa lahat. But before anything else, magpapakilala po muna tayo. Nagbabalik pong muli ang inyong mga lingkod. Ako nga po pala si Teacher Lovelyn Algabre Ruiz, Teacher Broadcaster at mula po sa SDO Olonga po. At syempre, kasama ko pa rin this morning si...
Yes, good morning, Ma'am Love. Ako naman po si Sir John Pons A. Santiago, your teacher broadcaster and school information coordinator mula po sa SDO Bulacan.
At dahil nga second episode natin ito, Sir John, mag-recap muna ba yung town hall noong nakaraan?
Sa una nating episode, syempre tinalakay agad natin yung pinaka-relevant at timely na mga usapin ng ating mga teacher, parents, students at mga kasama sa DepEd. Una nating tinalakay yung Devolution Transition Plan o DTP at kung paano ito nakaapekto sa operasyon ng kagawaran.
Tama ka dyan, partner. At matapos naman yung DTP, pinag-usapan natin yung pediatric vaccination. Siyempre, kasama natin si Dr. Dumlao ng School Health Division dahil mahalaga na sa eksperto ng kalusugan natin naririnig ang updates tungkol dito.
Tama ka dyan, Ma'am Love. Kaugnay din ng pediatric vaccination at pilot implementation of face-to-face classes. Isa rin sa agenda natin last episode ang ipakilala sa ating mga information officers ang ongoing nating Be the Kid campaign.
Tama. And today, para sa ating second session, pag-uusapan po natin ang mahalagang concerns sa buong kagawaran. Ang mga concerns sa muling pagsali ng Pilipinas ngayong taon sa Program for International Student Assessment or PISA.
Wow! At syempre, Ma'am Love, kaugnay nito ang progressive expansion of face-to-face classes. Ilalahad din sa atin ang updates sa School Safety Assessment Tool at financial assistance for schools implementing face-to-face classes. So talaga namang napakahalaga nitong session natin ngayong araw. Kaya simulan na natin ito, partner.
Yes, kaya naman upang formal na simulan ng ating programa, akin pong iniimbitahan ng lahat na tumayo at awitin ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas na siya namang susundan ng isang panalangin.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
O God, creator of the heaven and the universe, you are worthy of our praises. In you alone we pray and submit ourselves, for we are nothing without you. We humbly ask for your forgiveness and mercy. Dear Lord, we gather here today with the intent of doing good in thy name. Guide us to the right path. May our efforts be blessed with insights, understanding, wisdom, and respect for all. May our deep faith in you give us strength to act honestly and well in all matters before us. Amen.
Sa bahaging ito, pakinggan naman po natin ang Director 4 ng DepEd Public Affairs Service. Siya po talaga ang isa sa mga hinahangaan ko pagdating sa serbisyo publiko. Ang puno ng mga gumagabay sa ating mga kawani upang patuloy na maging updated sa mga tamang impormasyon. Walang iba kundi si Director June Arvin C. Godoy.
Magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. Thank you all for coming, albeit virtually, to our first DepEd Town Hall of the Public Affairs Service. At nais kong batiin at pasalamatan ang ating butihing kalihim at ina ng ating kagawaran, Secretary Leonor Magtolis Briones, for always inspiring PAS to come up with new communication initiatives in order to update all our internal stakeholders on critical milestones, priority projects, and campaigns for the betterment of our learners and personnel. Ang Town Hall series na ito ay dinisenyo para sa mas malalim na paglalahad ng ating mga napapanahong issue sapagkat hindi sapat ang press conferences at press releases or kahit simpleng post lamang sa Facebook or sa social media. Ang mga iyon ay nadisenyo para sa pangkalahatan, sa masa at sa publiko. At yun mismo ang pinagkaiba ng town hall meeting na ito. Ito ay eksklusibo para sa atin sa loob ng DepEd upang makita natin ng mas masinsinan, ng may lalim at may konteksto ang mga isyong hinaharap ng ating kagawaran. Sapagkat naniniwala ako na mas maipapaliwanag natin ng buong tapang at buong puso ang mga komplikadong usapin kung tayo mismo ay alam ng buo ang kasaysayan at konteksto ng ating mga nakikitang pagbabago at mga polisiya. Because how can we simplify a complicated idea if we cannot understand it completely ourselves? This event will help us in equipping ourselves for that singular endeavor. We inform and empower ourselves so we can inform and empower our stakeholders better. At the end of the day, we are all here, not because we are simply designated as information officers, or it's simply our obligation to attend, because we received a memo from our superiors. We are here precisely because we all believe that communication is a shared responsibility. Whether information officer or not, it must be part of our daily commitment to properly inform ourselves and our peers, our partners even, and our clientele. At kung may isa mang leksyon na ating natutunan sa krisis at sa pandemya, ito ay ang kahalagahan tunay ng komunikasyon. At this age of misinformation and disinformation, truth is our only weapon. And truth indeed is a slow runner, mabagal, no? I need your help to speed it up or perhaps ensure that the truth gets ahead in the information race. At hindi ko ito kayang mag-isa o ng public affairs service lamang. Hindi sapat ang isang buong taon upang bisitahin ang lahat ng barangay at paaralan sa buong bansa upang ipaliwanag, no, ng isa-isa ang mga issue. Kailangan ko ang tulong ninyo dahil responsibilidad nating lahat na ibahagi sa ating mga kasamahan at sa publiko ang mga kwento ng pagpupunyagi ng ating mga guro, mag-aaral at iba pang mga kasamahan. Sapagkat ang tunay na kwento ng DepEd ay kwento ninyo. Magtulungan tayo para sa bata at para sa bayan. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat.
Yes, tunay nga po no, na ang layunin ng ating Town Hall Series ay mas makapagbigay ng malalim at may konteksto na paglalahad ng mga napapanahong impormasyon. Kasi katulad nga po ng hamon sa atin ni Director, truth is our weapon. Kaya naman maraming salamat po muli, Director June.
Tama ka dyan, Ma'am Love. Malamang ay nabuhayan na ang ating mga kasamang information officers. Ngayon po ay simulan na natin ang presentation ng ating unang speaker. So let's go, Ma'am Love.
Yes, at upang i-discuss ang participation natin ngayong taon sa nalalapit na Program for International Student Assessment or PISA 2022, narito po ang ating unang speaker for today. Walang iba kundi ang ating Director for Bureau of Education Assessment, Director Nelia Benito. Magandang umaga po, Director Nelia.
Magandang umaga, Love.
Yes, po, Director.
And the school information coordinators. Let me share with you first an overview of the program for international student assessment and later the status of the ongoing PISA main survey 2022 data collection. Our trust to address the challenge of quality was the reason why we participated in international large-scale assessments, or what we call ILSAs, including the Program for International Student Assessment. In the words of the Secretary, the objective was to look into the mirror and find out how our learners compared with the rest of the world and generate important data to guide our reforms for quality. The legal basis is from our Republic Act 1053, Section 15, the Philippines' commitment to international benchmarks, and I quote, DepEd shall endeavor to increase per capita spending in education towards the immediate attainment of international benchmarks. That is why the policy guidelines in system assessment in the K-12 basic education program was issued. DepEd Order Number 29 Series of 2017. Our participation in PISA 2022, as I mentioned, is a commitment to international benchmarking in education. Furthermore, as the COVID-19 pandemic ravages education systems, it is important to have several options rather for the country's continuous push for quality education. PISA data with the addition of the Global Crisis Module in its school and student context questionnaires can offer reliable evidence for policy discussions to develop and enhance risk management and mitigation approaches in times of educational disruptions. Furthermore, the rich data that PISA can provide will help frame relevant and important insights as we strive to regain educational ground that has been lost during the crisis. PISA data may also disclose further inadequacies and inequities in our education system as we shift from conventional schooling to distance learning modalities. The Philippines participated in the PISA 2018 cycle and currently in the 2022 cycle. In 2018, the assessed domains were reading, math, science, global competence, and the major domain is reading. For this cycle, 2022, the assessed domains are reading, math, science, creative thinking, and the major domain is mathematics. So what is PISA? PISA stands for Program for International Student Assessment, and it is a triennial international assessment sponsored by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development that measures 15 years old ability to use the reading, mathematics, and science knowledge and skills to meet real-life challenges. What is PISA for? First, to indicate how well prepared students are for learning once they leave school. Second, to identify areas for improvement over time by schools, education systems, and governments. Third, to allow a comparison of student performance and the learning environment between different countries and economies. So this is just a snapshot of the PISA 2018 results that we had in 2018. The OECD average is 497, and we were far below the OECD average. So what does PISA measure? PISA focuses on the assessment of students' performance in reading, mathematics, and science. For PISA 2022 cycle, as I mentioned earlier, the major domain to be assessed is mathematics, while creative thinking is the additional innovative domain. PISA also collects valuable information on students' attitudes and motivations, dispositions, and beliefs, home background, learning experiences, school management and organization, and the learning environment. So these are the 3 questionnaires: cognitive assessment examination, the student questionnaire, and optional questionnaires for ICT familiarity, well-being, global competence, and financial literacy. For reading literacy, this is the capacity to understand, use, evaluate, reflect on, and engage with text in order to achieve one's goals, develop one's knowledge and potential, and participate in society. For scientific literacy, this is the ability to engage with science-related issues and with ideas of science as a reflective citizen. A scientifically literate person is willing to engage in reasoned discourse about science and technology, which requires the competencies to explain phenomena scientifically, evaluate and design scientific inquiry, and interpret data and science and evidence scientifically. Mathematical literacy, on the other hand, is an individual's capacity to reason mathematically and to formulate, employ, and interpret mathematics to solve problems in a variety of real-world contexts. It includes concepts, procedures, facts, and tools to describe, explain, and predict phenomena. It assists individuals to know the role that mathematics plays in the world and to make the well-founded judgments and decisions needed by constructive, engaged, and reflective 21st century citizens. So what is the language of assessment in PISA? PISA 22 was administered in the Philippines in English pursuant to the PISA 2022 technical standards that required participating countries to use their language of instruction as the language of testing. Given that Filipino PISA takers would most likely be in junior high school at the time of the examination or the test, the language of instruction is English for the concerned learning areas of the PISA 2022. The test assumes that a test taker should have reached a sufficient level of understanding in English to work on the PISA test without encountering linguistic problems. Who will take the PISA 2022 test? The PISA target population are students who are 15 years old and 3 months to 16 years and 2 months at the time of the assessment. Those who will sit in the assessment will be selected through a two-stage stratified random sampling. This will come from 106 divisions, 16 regions, 188 schools, and 7,608 estimated number of PISA students for 2022, but there will be only 42 students per school. So how will PISA be administered? PISA is administered as either paper-based assessment or computer-based assessment. But in the Philippines, it will be administered as a computer-based assessment or CBA. The approved testing window for the Philippines is from March 28 to 20 of May 2022. So what is the coverage of the PISA 2022 main survey administration? We have 5 batches actually and a follow-up session for May 16 to 20. And the dates are indicated in the slide with the different regions for the different batches. So there will be 26 divisions for batch 1, 23 divisions for batch 2, 14 divisions for batch 3, 25 divisions for batch 4, and 19 divisions for batch 5. For the schools, there will be a total of 153 for public schools and 35 private schools, a total of 188 schools. And the percentage for the public is 81.38, while for the private is 18.62. So what are the health protocols in PISA 2022? Although the COVID-19 posed a major challenge in conducting PISA-related activities, guidelines, DepEdu HJMC #1 series of 2021 and the PHLNC survey operations plan are in place to ensure strict observance to the health and safety protocols among the PISA students and testing personnel. The division health personnel for each sample division is now part of the PISA team to check and ensure the sample school's compliance to the COVID-19 protocols and school readiness assessment indicators. They will conduct minimum COVID-19 health checks to PISA testing personnel and PISA students and facilitate appropriate management, intervention, and referral of PISA students and testing personnel suspected with COVID-19. On the status of the ongoing PISA 2022 data collection, as of April 30, 2022, 187 out of 188 schools completed the test administration, which is 99%. We still have one remaining school for administration during the buffer week, May 16, 20, because of the inclement weather caused by Typhoon Agaton during the time that the school was to have their data collection. So what's next for PISA 2022? If we look at the slide, in May, the National Main Survey Data File Preparation will be done. This is on the coding, validity, and reliability checks and data submission. And for November, by November, we will have our main survey data review. This is the post-submission data review. And by July of 2023, we will have a final feedback on the International Database 1. And by September, a final feedback on the International Database 2. And by December of 2023, the PISA 2022 official release data and publication of this initial report. We do have some reflections and policy recommendations derived from the PISA experience. First is to maximize the use of large-scale assessments for targeting improvements in learning outcomes as evidence of education quality outcomes. Second is to identify other quality standards beyond what are measured by large-scale assessments. Identify responsible units for the large-scale assessment preparations, such as the NAT and also the Southeast Asia Primary Learning Metrics, similar to what was done with PISA. Establish new assessment results baseline by establishing a new base year and making the necessary preparations at the central office and field levels to be on the same page as the testing framework, method of assessment, and provide test familiarization materials and other support. So this is the reflections and policy recommendations based on the test administration that we had for the main survey. Thank you very much.
Alright, maraming salamat po, Director. Yes, maraming salamat po, Director Nelia, sa pagbibigay ng updates tungkol sa ating preparation for PISA 2022. At bago po tayo dumako sa ating Q&A, syempre, babatiin po muna natin ang ating 1.3 live viewers sa ating Facebook group live. Ayan, good morning po sa inyong lahat. Maraming salamat sa inyong patuloy na pagsama at pagtutok sa atin.
Yan, maraming salamat po sa inyong pagdalo at sa patuloy na pagtugon sa mga hamon sa komunikasyon. Batiin ko lang, partner, no, ang mga kasamahan kong public affairs team dyan po sa Region 3 and dyan po sa SDO Bulacan. Nanonood po sila sa atin ngayon. And good morning po. Sana po ay marami kayong matutuhan sa araw na ito. Ngayon po ay sisimulan na natin i-address ang mga natanggap at natatanggap pa nating mga katanungan tungkol sa ating PISA. So unang tanong po natin, ito na po siya. Aling aspeto po kaya ng PISA ang kailangan nating mas bigyan ng focus sa paghahanda natin para sa ating participation sa assessment this year? So narito po ulit si Director Nelia para po sagutin ang unang tanong.
Depende yan sa eskwelahan, ano? Kasi kung if the students are not performing well in science, then they should be the ones that science should be given more emphasis. If it's mathematics, it should be given emphasis if our students are lacking behind in terms of math performance. Kasi yung ating major domain is mathematics for this school year. Last time it was English. But then if we prepare our students for this, kung saan sila mahina, kung saan sila nahihirapan, doon natin sila bibigyan ng emphasis in terms of teaching.
Ayun, maraming salamat po, Director Nelia. Alam ko po na talagang marami sa atin ang naisumali diyan sa paisa na yan. So, Ma'am Love?
Yes. Sir Pons, mukhang wala ng katanungan tayo na nakikita. Pero paalala po sa ating mga viewers, kung meron po kayong mga nais itanong sa ating director, ito na po ang ating pagkakataon para po mas lalong mabigyan ng linaw yung inyong mga agam-agam o mga katanungan na nasa isip. So ano po yung dapat natin gawin? I-type nyo lamang po sa ating comment section if you have questions and clarifications. But dahil nga po malinaw at komprehensibo na naipaliwanag ng ating director ang patungkol sa paisa, mukhang wala ng katanungan yung ating mga viewers. So once again, maraming salamat po, Director Nelia. Mabuhay po kayo.
Thank you, John and Love. Can I just make a announcement to our teachers? Please join the program for assessment. This is a module done by Mayor and also our office together with a consortium on assessment. Please enroll in this program for professional development on assessment. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
po,
you po.
Director. Maraming salamat po. God bless you. And syempre ngayon, upang maghatid ng dagdag impormasyon tungkol sa ating pagsisiguro sa kaligtasan ng implementasyon ng ating face-to-face classes at sa ating school safety assessment tool, pakinggan natin mula sa BHROD, School Effectiveness, alright, madali lamang po, School Effectiveness Division representing po Director Roger V. Masapol. Kasama po natin this morning, live na live, Miss Marian Efondo. Good morning po, Miss Marian.
Good morning po, Miss Love and Sir John. Thank you very much for your introduction. So again po, I'm Marian from the School Effectiveness Division. And for today's discussion, we will be reinforming you or reorienting you about the School Safety Assessment Tool or the ESAT for the progressive expansion of the face-to-face learning modality. So alam ko po, halos lahat naman sa atin, nakita na siguro yung DM30 series of 2022. Pero mas maganda na magkaroon po ulit tayo ng short discussion tungkol dito para sigurado talaga tayo na naintindihan po natin yung ating school safety assessment. So for our discussion flow, first we will be discussing the purpose and objectives, and then the sample format of our revised ESAT, comparison of the 2021 ESAT and the revised ESAT, several general updates, summary of our revised indicators, and of course, the process flow of data collection and report generation. And before din po tayo mag-proceed sa ating Q&A, we have prepared few frequently asked questions. So to proceed, for our purpose and objectives po, number one, the ESAT is intended to assess the readiness of our schools to participate in the progressive expansion of face-to-face classes in the time of the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, it's intended to gather information from our schools in preparation for the safe reopening of our classes. And lastly, to identify key areas for the provision of support and technical assistance to schools from different governance levels. So to add more emphasis, ito naman po, uulitin lang natin what is the ESAT for and what is it not for. So number one, again, as mentioned kanina, it is meant to prepare our schools and to inform the schools of the required indicators and standards that the schools need to meet in preparation for the eventual reopening of classes while ensuring safety of learners and school personnel. And lastly, to serve as guide to our different governance levels, to our schools division office, regional office, and of course, central office in providing support and technical assistance to our schools. So hindi lang po schools ang kailangan maghanda at mag-prepare. And also, we would like to highlight that the ESAT is not the final determinant on the school's participation to the progressive expansion of face-to-face classes. Again, it is only meant to prepare our schools. So as you can see po on our screen, we have provided a sample format of our revised school safety assessment tool. So you can see our main area, component, sub-indicators, and main indicator. So one of the features po ng ating revised school safety assessment tool is we have already categorized our sub-indicators into two. So our required sub-indicators and optional. Later po, i-discuss natin yung difference. So let's now move forward to the comparison or ano po ba yung ating ano po ba yung feature ng ating revised school safety assessment tool. So as you can see, in our 2021 SSAT, we have identified 48 main indicators and 161 sub-indicators. In revising our school safety assessment tool, we have now reduced the main indicators to 42 and the sub-indicators into 68 from 161. And with the 68 sub-indicators, divided pa po siya into required and optional. So 60 ang ating required and 8 ang ating optional. So ayan po, nakita natin na nabawasan ang ating indicators, but we would like to clarify na we have reduced our indicators based on the result and M&E that we have done during our pilot implementation while ensuring na our health and safety protocols are not sacrificed. So ayan po, when we say main areas, these are the 4 fundamental areas where mechanism and standards on the progressive expansion of face-to-face classes are categorized. Di ba po, nandyan yung ating managing school operations, teaching and learning, well-being, and lastly, yung ating school and community coordination. For our components, these are the subcategories of our main areas. And for the main indicators, ito po yung mga kailangan i-comply. So these are the required standards that must be met. Main indicators may have sub-indicators. So for our required sub-indicators, these are the specific, non-negotiable standards that must be met along with their respective main indicator. And when we say naman po optional, these are the additional indicators that the schools may comply with for additional precautionary measures. So for our general updates, ano po ba yung ating mga ginawang pagbabago sa ating school safety assessment? So number 1, still po, we would like to emphasize that all public and private schools shall answer the revised SSAT. However, schools that already accomplished the 2021 SSAT are no longer required to answer the revised SSAT, but may use it to further guide their progressive expansion of the face-to-face classes. So as you may know po, mas stricto actually yung ating 2021 SSAT, di ba? So kung napasa po ninyo yun, most likely, sure na sure po kami na mapapasa din ninyo ang ating revised SSAT. So kung natik na po natin yon, no need na to accomplish our revised SSAT. But if we want to, okay lang din naman po para mas mabigyan tayo ng guide sa pag-conduct natin ng ating progressive expansion. Second, schools need to meet all required indicators to be allowed to participate in the progressive expansion of face-to-face classes. So as mentioned kanina, the schools may also comply with our optional indicators as applicable. Yan. So number 3, as mentioned, our sub-indicators are now grouped into required and optional. And number 4, the revised SSAT is in accordance with our DepEd DOH JMC number 1 series of 2022 or the revised operational guidelines on the progressive expansion of face-to-face learning modality. And it is also anchored with the DepEd order or the guidelines on the progressive expansion of face-to-face classes. So with this, the indicators on the revised SSAT may have been modified, added, removed, and or retained. So sa schools po, when we conducted field visit, nalaman po namin na usually yung ating ESAT lang ang ating binabasa. So we also would like to encourage everyone na basahin din po natin ang ating JMC and ang ating DepEd order to provide us, to help us understand better yung principles po ng ating school safety assessment po. Kasi mas na-elaborate po siya sa ating mga policies. And ayan, lastly, LGU concurrence and parents' consent have been removed as main indicators but are retained in the tool since these are necessary requirements to be fully compliant and secure authorization to participate in the progressive expansion of face-to-face classes. So we have only removed them as part of our indicator, but schools still need to comply with our LGU concurrence and parents' consent bago po tayo mapayagan na mag-conduct ng face-to-face classes. So kung nakita po natin na ang copy ng ating revised ESAT at the lower part sa last page ng ating school safety assessment tool, makikita natin, doon na natin nilagay yung ating LGU concurrence and parents' consent kasama ang vaccination status ng school personnel. So this will now be accomplished by our SDO composite team. Ayan, so for the summary naman of our revised indicators, so to provide you a gist lang po kung ano ba yung ating mga tinanggal or binago. So again, as mentioned, with the continuous improvement of the COVID-19 situation in the country and considering the result of the pilot study on face-to-face, several required sub-indicators were revised, removed, and or transferred to optional sub-indicators. So for the indicators that have been removed or modified in the revised ESAT, here is our summary. So again, number 1, yung requirement of the 28-day zero COVID-19 case in the barangay where the school is located. So sa ating 2021 ESAT pre-assessment question natin to, sinabi natin na kapag merong existing case, hindi na pwede mag-proceed. Tinanggal na po natin yon. Number 2, provision of an alternative to yellow trash bag in case it is not available. Number 3, changing the instruction in some indicators from 1:1 to availability. So, and also remove the provision requiring face shield, toothbrush, and toothpaste, and remove the provision requiring the availability of sterilization box to disinfect outputs like quizzes. So, yan po yung ating mga tinanggal or minodify. So for our required sub-indicators naman that we have transferred to optional sub-indicators, we have the following. Number 1, installation of CO2 monitoring devices. So optional indicator na lang po ito. And if ever the school decides to install our CO2 monitoring device, pwedeng isang CO2 monitoring device lang po sa school kasi portable naman po siya. Hindi naman po kailangan per air conditioned space isang CO2 monitoring device lang. Also, number 2, required sub-indicator na din ang ating use of air purifiers. And 3, ito po, designation of separate entrance and exit points in the school and designation of separate entrance and exit points in the classrooms. And lastly, establishment of drop-off and pick-up points that are clearly identified and marked. Because we understand na not all schools have enough space for our drop-off and pick-up points. So now po, we proceed to the process flow for schools, SDO, and RO. So we would like to clarify na itong process flow pong ito ay for public schools lamang. Kasi po meron tayong separate process flow for our private schools. Nakikita po natin yung requirements sa private school sa ating JMC. And so to proceed, so for the process flow with our schools, una, syempre, kailangan gawin ni school is to ensure to comply with all the required indicators in the SSAT or the ESAT. And then after that, accomplish the revised ESAT via Google Forms. And pagkatapos po nito, the school will undergo validation. So we would like to clarify that for the validation purpose po, for our validation process, meron na po tayong options. So the SDO composite team may visit the school or may just request pertinent documents to our schools, like halimbawa photos, videos, and other documents na magpapatunay na talagang na-achieve po natin or na-comply natin yung ating indicators. Hindi na po kailangan na lahat ng SDO composite team bisitahin or mag-conduct ng school visit, because we understand na may mga SDOs po na thousands ang ating schools at hindi po yun logistically kakayanin, logistically sound. So yan, after the validation, pag nakapasa po ang ating school sa kinonduct na validation ng SDO composite team, pwede na po siyang sumagot ng Google form on the status of compliance with face-to-face. Ito pong Google form na to na nasa step number 5, yan po ang magsiserve as our quick count kung ilan na yung nakapasa sa ating ESSA. And then, in the event naman po na hindi makapasa sa validation ang ating schools, so if they did not meet the required indicators, the schools will receive technical assistance from our SDO composite team. And until such time na the schools meet all the required indicators, saka lang po siya syempre makakapasa and makakapagsagot ng ating Google Forms for our quick count. For the process naman po sa ating SDO, number 1, kailangan mag-create tayo ng online version of the revised school safety assessment tool via Google Forms. And then share the link of the revised ESAT via Google Forms to our schools. And then create a composite team if wala pa, or kung meron na, i-organize na po natin yung ating composite team. And then after that, we shall consolidate the revised ESAT via Google Forms. So mas madali na po kasi kung gagawin natin siyang Google Forms kasi sa back-end data po nito, nakasummarize na po yung ating list of indicators, which the SDO composite teams may use as our guide or reference in providing technical assistance. Kasi makikita po natin doon kung anong indicators ang nakano pa din. At yung indicators naman na halos lahat na comply na. And then after that, as mentioned po kanina, one of the duties of our SDO composite team is to validate the data submitted by the school. So kapag fully compliant, we will provide the link ng ating Google Forms on the status of compliance with face-to-face requirements for the RO's quick count. Kapag may pending compliance, the SDO will provide technical assistance. And again, until such time po na ma-accomplish ni school ang lahat ng ating required indicators, saka lang po natin siya bibigyan ng Google Forms containing or the Google Forms on the status of compliance with face-to-face requirements for our quick count. Sa process flow naman po for our regional offices, so simple lang, i-share lang po natin yung link ng ating Google Forms and then double check of course our data. So for the central office naman po, ang central office po, specifically our office, School Effectiveness Division, created the Google Forms on the validation status of ESAT compliance, and it will be disseminated through a memorandum on the process flow of ESAT. So hopefully po, by this week, makarating na yon sa ating kanya-kanya opisina. And also, we will be disseminating an ESAT info packet. So ito po yung ginawa nating advocacy material para easier for our school heads, for our SDO and RO to understand yung ating school safety assessment. So that ends po our short discussion on the school safety assessment. So ang ating last na lang po, para lang din siguro ma-filter na natin yung mga questions if ever na meron. Ulitin na lang natin. So ito yung mga frequently asked questions sa ating revised ESAT. So again, as mentioned kanina, yung 28-day zero COVID-19 case, tinanggal na po siya as an indicator. So hindi na po siya kailangan na gawin. So we'd like to emphasize that schools that are fully compliant with the revised ESAT can only participate in the progressive expansion of the face-to-face classes if they are under alert level 1 or 2. And syempre kapag compliant nga po sila sa ESAT at nag-agree ang regional director na pwede tayong mag-conduct ng face-to-face. Also po, again, all schools, whether public or private schools, shall answer our revised school safety assessment tool. Nasa ano din po ito, DM 30-2022, yung ating ESAT. And do schools need to meet all the required indicators? Yes po. As mentioned kanina, lahat ng required indicators kailangan po nating ma-comply. For the optional, pwede pong i-comply natin siya, pwede naman pong hindi. So as applicable lang. And also for the LGU concurrence and parents' consent, again, they are no longer part of the main indicators, but the schools need to comply with our LGU concurrence and parents' consent as these requirements are necessary. So ang mag-check na po nito ay ang ating SDO composite. And so what happens if yellow trash bags are unavailable? So as mentioned po kanina, in case yellow trash bags are unavailable, schools may use a separate bag or container marked for infectious medical waste. So pwede pong hindi talaga color yellow as long as meron tayong yellow mark na nag-i-indicate na ito ay trash bag containing infectious waste. Ayan, so what is the updated minimum contact or teaching time per grade level? So nasa ano din po ito, policies natin, but to explain lang, ay to inform nyo lang po, ito na ang ating minimum contact time for teaching and learning per grade level. So kindergarten and grade 1, 4 hours, and grades 2 to 12, 5 hours po. And so what is the maximum class size per grade level? So for kindergarten, 12 learners, and for grades 1 to 12, it varies depending on the classroom size and consideration of the 1 meter physical distancing. And 12 learners at a time naman for activities requiring use of workshops and or laboratories. Yan, so ito po, lagi din po itong natatanong, is there a recommended type of electric fan like ceiling fan ba, stand fan ba, or kung ano pa man pong klaseng electric fan yan to be used or installed in the classroom? So wala po, there is no recommended type of electric fan to be used or installed in classrooms. Kahit ano pong nag-work na electric fan ay pwede po natin gamitin. So ang importante lang dapat pong tandaan natin dito ay dapat merong proper ventilation sa loob ng classroom. And also, na-mention na natin kanina na hindi natin kailangan na lahat ng air-conditioned space or closed spaces ay tig-iisa ng CO2 monitoring device. So the school may, ito ay optional indicator, but just in case gusto natin na mas masiguro ang ating safety, pwedeng isang CO2 monitoring device na lang po. And ayan, na-mention na din natin to kanina na optional indicator na po ang ating pag-designate ng separate entrance and exit points sa ating classroom. So hindi po kailangan na lahat ng classroom natin tigdadalawa ng pinto. So kung meron po tayong dalawang may separate entrance and exit points, better po, but hindi po siya requirement. And also, lastly, can the revised ESAT be contextualized or modify the requirements indicated in the ESAT suited for the school's face-to-face implementation? So the revised ESAT cannot be contextualized because the indicators in our revised ESAT are in accordance with our policies na na-mention kanina. So ating JMC and ating DepEd order, so DO17, which provides the mechanisms and standards on the progressive expansion of face-to-face classes. So that's my last slide na po. Thank you very much for listening. If you still have questions po, feel free na lang po to ask. We'll be very happy to answer and assist you. Thank you very much po and good morning.
Alright, maraming salamat po, Miss Marian, for the discussion of updates for our ESAT. And for sure, no, mas masisiguro natin ang ligtas na eskwela at expansion ng ating face-to-face classes. Muli po, para sa may mga nais linawin, erase lamang po ang inyong mga question sa ating comment section para po kayo ay aming ma-recognize. And as of the moment, nasa 1.5. Nakikita ko 1.5 active viewers na po tayo na nanonood ngayon mula Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao. Alam niyo po, Miss Marian and Sir John, may mga nababasa ako from our comment section. May mga taga Davao, SDO Davao, may mga taga SDO Cebu. Siyempre, nanonood din sa atin yung mga taga Nueva Ecija. Ayan, good morning po sa inyo. At pagbati na rin po sa mga taga SDO Olonga po na nanonood ngayon. At susubukan po natin na sagutin ang inyong mga katanungan. Alright? Miss Marian, meron po tayong natanggap na katanungan mula po sa ating comment section. Ito po ang kanyang katanungan. May mga magiging pagbabago po kaya sa technical assessment ng ESAT sa mga schools ngayong may mga provinces po na nasa alert level 2 ulit?
All right. Thank you very much for the question, Miss Love. So for ano po kaya tong technical technical ano ba yung sinabi niyo? Kung may mga pagbabago since alert level 1 or 2 na siya. With regard po sa changes, ang susundin pa din po natin na assessment ay yung ating revised school safety assessment tool. Hello, nag-e-echo. Hello?
Yes po. Technical assessment. Yes po, yun po yung tanong nila. Thank you, Miss Marian. And meron din po yata tayong isa pang katanungan from our viewers, Sir John.
Ayan, ang second question po natin, Miss Marian, sabi po ng ating viewer, paano at kailan po kaya natin ma-receive ang ESAT info packets?
Ayan. So thank you very much po again sa ating question. We'll do our best po na ating mai-upload na ang ating info packet sa this week kasi po tapos naman na siya. So bale po ang as advised by ASEC Malcolm. Ang gagawin na lang po natin dito ay we will coordinate with COMS and i-upload po natin ito sa ating Google Drive. Sa DepEd or sa website kasama ang ating materials sa Bida Kid. So, yan.
Alright. So, narinig po natin antabayanin po natin this week. I-upload na po yan. Maraming salamat po muli, Miss Marian, para sa inyong presentation at clarification sa mga tanong ng ating mga DepEd Information Officer. God bless you po. Mabuhay po kayo. Maraming salamat po. Alright, and last but definitely not the least sa ating agenda for today, tatalakayin naman natin ang financial assistance na inihanda ng kagawaran para sa mga paaralang nagpapatupad ng face-to-face classes. Siyempre, ang topic na ito ay inaabangan din ng ating mga guro, lalo na doon sa mga paaralang kasali or sasali pa lang sa face-to-face classes. Malamang ay busy rin silang ihanda ang kanilang mga classroom para sa ligtas na pagpasok ng mga mag-aaral.
Kaya naman po, pakinggan po natin ang presentasyon para sa paksang Financial Assistance for Schools Implementing Face-to-Face Classes mula sa ating butihing Undersecretary for Finance, Annalyn M. Sevilla.
Kanina po may panawagan din po yung mga guro na baka pwedeng i-delay natin ng kaunti yung pagsisimula ng face-to-face classes kasi it seems na hindi sila lahat ready pa. Although gusto na rin naman daw nila, baka daw pwedeng i-delay pa ng konti. Posible ba yun?
Madaling pag-usapan yan at in fact hindi po yan problema. Una, ang ating pong requirement sa pagsali sa ating progressive expansion face-to-face is voluntary. Ibig sabihin, gusto at handa ang eskwelahan. Kasama ang siyempre ang ating mga guro dahil sila magtuturo. Pangalawa, ang mga magulang. may parent consent pa nga po kami na hinihingi. Ang mga mag-aaral ay halimbawa, preferred po natin yung bakunado. Preferred, ibig sabihin, kung marami pong nag-a-apply at gusto pong bumalik sa eskwela using the limited face-to-face, kapag po meron pong nakapila ng mga bakunado, inuuna po natin sila. Pero kung wala na po at meron pang space para ma-accommodate, then we accommodate those who are still not vaccinated. No? So yun po yung explanation doon. And marami po talaga na nakapila pa. In fact, I'll just give the number kasi nag-update ako para sa inyo. Total of 13,859 and public schools and 400 private schools na po ang nag-a-apply at na-nominate na po para magkaroon sila ng limited face-to-face. Pero ang nakakapag-start pa lang po ngayon ay 9,994 na mga public schools at 212 private schools. So kung meron pong mga guro na sa tingin nila hindi pa handa at marami pa po silang ginagawa na para mapasa ang school assessment safety test, ay hindi naman po natin pinipilit.
Nakausap po namin yung isang grupo po ng mga guro at ang hinaing po nila yung pag-aayos, paghahanda daw po para sa face-to-face classes. Yung iba, nanggagaling na sa sarili nilang bulsa. Halimbawa daw yung panggamit ng panglinis para makabalik yung mga estudyante. Ano po bang nangyari? Bakit po nagkakagano medyo kinakapos po ata sila sa budget?
Opo, maganda rin po na binigyan nyo kami ng pagkakataon na ma-explain ito, no? Kasi ang requirement po ng Department of Education para talaga mabigyan ng kumpleto yung ating mga financial resources ay napakalaki. At alam naman natin na itong nakaraan na 2 taon ay meron din tayo mga health priorities or mga kasama natin na humihingi ng budget sa national government. Hindi naman din po tayo wala, no? Hindi din naman natin masasabi na kapos kasi ginagawa natin ito ng paraan. For example, ito pong paghahanda natin sa face-to-face classes noong November, December ay nagdagdag po tayo ng additional MOE doon sa mga kasali na. Ibig sabihin ay nakapasa na po sila bilang mga pilot schools at saka mga eskwelahan na sasali sa ating face-to-face. Ngayong pong taon na ito ay nagbigay din po tayo ng last March 4. Nag-download, yun po yung term, no? Nag-download kasi galing sa central office, pupunta sa region, pupunta sa division, pupunta sa eskwelahan. Ang total po nito ay 936 million pesos sa lahat ng mga sasali na eskwelahan sa ating face-to-face classes. Siyempre, dadaan po yan sa region, yung region naman po nag-inspect, nag-validate. At yung mga division offices, sila po yung talagang kausap ng ating mga eskwelahan. At syempre, bago dumating sa eskwelahan, ang aking pong balita ngayon, ang feedback ay napili na po yung mga eskwelahan at ibibigay na po yung karagdagan na pondo para sa kanila. Ngayon, hindi naman po natin minamasama, may mga teacher po talagang napaka-initiative. Pili ay naghahanda na kasi may mga guro naman talagang gusto nang makita yung kanilang mga mag-aaral. At hindi rin po tago or lihim na marami po sa mga guro natin talaga naman po nag-out of pocket. Ibig sabihin, hindi na po talaga kasama sa budget ng DepEd pero pinapaganda ang kanilang mga eskwelahan. Yun po, tayo yung nagbibigay ng papasalamat sa kanila, no? Lalo na po yung hindi lang mga guro, mga magulang, LGU, community, kasi marami po talagang gusto bumalik na sa eskwela. Pero ibabalik ko lang po, no, meron pong pondo. For this year, meron pong total na 30 billion ang mga eskwelahan. Kaya lang, ano ho kami, 45,000 schools naman kami. So yung pong billion dito sa central office, pagbaba po niya sa mga eskwelahan, mga 100,000 or million, depende kung gano'ng kalaki ang eskwelahan. And then may additional na po na 136 million para po sa sasali. At hindi naman po lahat ay magkakaroon ng limited face-to-face. Yun lang pong nag-volunteer. Una, kailangan voluntaryo. Pangalawa, nakapasa po sa ating safety school assessment. Quite a number of available funding from the local government, which we call the Special Education Fund. And the Special Education Fund, I also have that in my office as they also report to me. More or less about 50%, about 15 billion is contribution from the local government. So all in all, we can say that we have about 45 billion available for our public schools, including the Special Education Fund from the local government. However, there is that equity issue that we are trying to resolve right now, meaning the higher the class or the level of city and municipality, the more local funding they have. And it's really unfortunate or unfair for schools who have more enrollees and yet they have lower special education fund from the local government unit. And that is where I also included in our computation or formula the additional funding that we are providing to our schools. The lower the SEF contribution, the higher we will try to subsidize them. And the more they have of the local government fund, like for example, Makati, Pasig, Manila, and Quezon City, the less that we will provide for additional MOE for this school. Question about do we still need school buildings? There is now blended learning, and we are blending face-to-face and online learning. So the question is, do we need the school building program? The answer po is yes, we still need, because there's still inequality in the provision of our school building. Probably po there are regions and specific cities na talaga po fully developed, na talaga may mga classrooms na po sila, may mga buildings na. Pero marami pa po sa inventory natin talaga ang nangangailangan ng school building. Lalo na po yung mga nasa last mile school na binention yung Secretary Lee kanina. So that's for the new or the establishment of new school building. The other component of the school building program is the repair and rehabilitation or renovation of school building, and that is where we need the support of course, the executive, the legislative, sila rin po yung magpapasa ng budget natin. But I really hope na mabigyan po ng pansin at ng suporta yung repair natin sa school building. Kasi nga po, maraming nang kailangan baguhin mismo, physically, sa facilities natin to support this blended learning approach. Kagaya nga po nung kanina, ang ganda-ganda ng pinag-uusapan, may mga technology na ating po dapat na binibigay para sa mga guro, para sa mga bata. At yung ating pong current setup of the classroom is still really designed for the face-to-face approach only. So we need to calibrate, we need to change the setup of the classroom. Kailangan pa rin po, may mga eskwelahan na hanggang ngayon nakapila pa, ibig sabihin backlog ng mga school building program na talaga naghihintay po ng kanilang sariling mga school building or classrooms. That's number one. And second, yung pong pag-repair, pag-renovate at pag-rehabilitate ng ating mga classrooms ngayon so that it is responsive to the really the actual learning approach that we're doing. Hindi nga po, ang ganda rin ng sagot ni Asik Malcolm kanina, there's no dichotomy, hindi po natin po pwedeng iwalay or ipili na ng isa, face-to-face or online. It should be now blended. And that requires a lot of resources. Funding para sa mga facilities, sa training ng ating mga teacher because we are now doing this in a different approach. And also, I think isa po sa challenge na gusto ko idagdag is yung dalawa pala na challenges na idadagdag ko sa dami ng mga pinamanage natin ngayon in the Department of Education as enumerated by Asset Malcolm is yung pong shared responsibility. Now, I think it's during this COVID time, yung po yung silver lining na highlight natin na ang edukasyon ay hindi lamang po nakasalalay sa Department of Education. And we need all of you in the local government unit, the parents, the community, para po matawid natin, itulay natin itong transition na ito na ating ginagawa. And that was really pushed by the pandemic. Hindi po siguro itignan natin ang opportunity being brought to us. The second one is the uncertainty of the health condition. Hindi po kasi namin yun makokontrol. At yun ay something na talaga, kumbaga sa variables, there's fixed variable, and yung isa ay talagang sa dasal po natin dinadaan na wala na pong variant or wala na pong ibang virus na magde-develop wherein kung saan marami nang sumasama sa progressive expansion ng face-to-face or eventually the next school year probably ay talagang part na yung limited face-to-face ng ating learning. Ay yun ay hindi ko namin kayang tayaan dahil that is something na nakasalalay na po sa ating mga health experts. At mahirap din po sa amin, sa parte namin dahil even though we are preparing for contingencies, uncertainties, and we provide some fund for that, ang hirap is paano kukulang din, pati yung pag-standby natin o yung pag-prepare natin sa mga contingencies. And then the last one is our support fund. No? Alam po natin na marami na po, ako'y natutuwa, nakita ko yung isang bata na ngiting tagumpay ang kanyang ipinakita dahil nakabalik na siya sa eskwelahan. Kitang-kita po natin yung kasiyahan ng mga bata na makita ulit yung kanilang mga kaklase at mga guro. At sa pagbabalik nila sa eskwela, ay nagbigay po tayo ng funding support sa mga eskwelahan. A total of 977.5 million rounded off ang ating pong provide para sa mga eskwelahan na gustong sumali sa ating face-to-face. Ang total po ng eskwelahan natin ay 44,984. Ang elementarya, 35,100. Ang junior high school, 3,293. At yung senior high school ay 6,591. Hindi naman po lahat ng 44,984 or 45,000 to round off ay nag-face-to-face ngayon. No? Meron po tayong number na lumalaki, kaya tawag natin ay progressive. At kami po ay nagbibigay ng update sa inyo para sabihin kung ilan na yung mga sumasali. At binibigyan po natin sila ng additional fund para po matulungan sila sa pag-prepare ng ating pong safe back to school. At yung mga amount ng 936 million ay na-download na po natin sa mga regional offices para po matulungan ang mga eskwelahan na sasali sa ating face-to-face classes. Ito pong huling slide na papakita natin ay yung pong pirmado na advisory. Ayan, kung saan pwedeng magamit ang additional fund na ating pong binibigay as support sa mga eskwelahan na sasali sa ating face-to-face classes. So, we look forward na mas marami pa po ang magiging ready, handa, at syempre masaya dahil maligaya at ligtas na tayo babalik sa ating mga eskwela. Maraming salamat po. Balik po ako sa inyo.
Maraming salamat po sa presentation ni Yusek Sevilla. Kung mapapansin po ninyo, ang presentation po ni Yusek ay compilation ng interviews tungkol sa financial assistance for schools with face-to-face classes. Maaari po natin itong gawing guide upang sagutin ang mga katanungan tungkol po sa topic na ito. And although hindi tayo masasamahan ni Yusek today para sa Q&A portion, tatanggapin pa rin po natin ang mga questions ukol sa nakaraang presentation at sasagutin natin after our town hall session. Kaya naman kung may nais po kayong linawin tungkol po dito ay mangyaring i-type po ito sa ating comment section. So try po nating magbasa ng kanilang question. Yan ito po. So question number 1, may mga additional guidelines pa kaya tayong i-expect para sa mga eskwelahan na nag-i-implement at mag-i-implement pa ng face-to-face classes. So yung question na to ay sasagutin po natin mamaya. So meron po tayong question, Ma'am Love pa?
Yes, meron pa tayo ulit dito natanggap na katanungan. Ang kanyang tanong ay mayroon po kayang additional MOE for areas na may mas maraming schools na nag-face to face na?
Ayun. So, parami ang mga eskwelahan, Ma'am Love, no?
Yes.
Na nag-face-to-face classes. At ganoon din po, maraming salamat po sa mga katanungan. Rest assured po na masasagot po ang ating questions after ng ating program through our exclusive School Information Coordinators Group. Doon sa ating group, kung meron pa kayong tanong, pwede kayong magbato at amin po yang sasagutin. So marami pong salamat sa lahat na nagpadala ng kanilang mga katanungan at naway nalinawan po ang lahat tungkol sa mga topics natin ngayong araw. At kung may nais pa kayong linawin o itanong tungkol po sa PAISA sa ating pakikilahok ngayong taon, dyan po sa updated School Safety Assessment Tool at Financial Assistance for Schools implementing face-to-face classes, maaari po nating iparating ito sa Public Affairs Service via email sa mga address po na nakadisplay sa ating screen.
Yes, malayang-malaya niyo pong iparating sa amin ang inyong mga concerns. At syempre po, sa pagtatapos ng ating programa, pakinggan natin ang mensahe ni Assistant Secretary for National Academy of Sports and Field Operation, Malcolm Garma. Good morning po.
Morning to everyone. First, I would like to apologize for not able to join you in the call. This is a recorded message because I need to address some concerns. So I am on leave right now. But at the onset, would like to congratulate again our PAS, no, headed by Director John Godoy, for successfully holding the second of the series of town hall for the Edo Action. And I think this kind of activity is very important considering that the Department of Education, as any other agency for that matter, are struggling to really face the challenge and issues of misinformation and disinformation. And for this, I think this town hall series, no, initiated by our PAS is, I think, it's a very important undertaking to be able to address this issue. So for this, would like to congratulate not only our PAS, but also all our information officers for really taking the challenge of giving the right information. And for this town hall series, no, this morning, I think you had a very accurate account and information coming from our resource persons, of course, headed by Undersecretary Annalyn Sevilla, for giving you the information and the latest, no, on the support that the central office is giving to our field units, no, so far as the implementation of our progressive expansion face-to-face classes concerned. And also, I think it's important for our information officers to know the latest, no, and the updates regarding the policies that we are implementing right now. Again, as far as the implementation of the face-to-face classes is concerned, we call this as a policy package, no, for the guidance of our field officials, our field units, in their implementation of our face-to-face classes. And I think one of the more important policies that we would like to share with you, and it was shared by Director Roger Masapol, is on the revamped safety assessment tool. So I think it's very clear that the objective of revising our SSAT is really to align the ongoing situation insofar as the COVID-19 is concerned. And of course, we would like to align the provisions of our SSAT with that of what we have learned from our pilot implementation. And again, we'd like to emphasize that with this alignment and adjustment, you know, of the SSAT, more schools will be able to qualify, you know, for our face-to-face classes this school year, and hopefully within the early part of next school year. And I guess one of the more important issues that DepEd is facing right now is the challenge of our election. So 7 days to go, I think we'll be having our national election. And as always, our teachers, no, and some of our non-teaching personnel are very much involved in the preparation and the actual conduct of the election. So I think it's important that our information officers are informed and updated on the latest situation regarding the preparation and the involvement of our teachers for the national election. And would like to thank Director Mark Bragado for joining us this morning and shared with us some of the latest updates insofar as the election task force is concerned. And also would like to acknowledge and recognize Director Nelia Benito, no, for sharing, I think, one of the major undertaking that DepEd has taken, and this is on the PISA. So I think kanina na banggit ni Director Nelia ano na yung latest update natin, no, with regards to the PISA. So almost all our schools that were selected to participate in the PISA have already finished, no, their test. And I think one of the main features of this PISA, no, that we are taking this year is that DepEd has really prepared for this, no? Not only in terms of test administration, but really preparing our examinees, no, our learners who took the PISA exam in terms of their readiness in taking this kind of large-scale assessment test. So we hope and pray that with this kind of preparation, we'll be able to improve, no, our performance in the PISA. So to our information officers from the regions, from the divisions, and from the schools, it's important that we take note and acknowledge and recognize, for that matter, the importance of this information, because this is what we are going to share with our stakeholders, with our communities, with our taga-subaybay, no, ng ating Edu Aksyon. Even if we do our press conferences on a weekly basis, no, almost on a weekly basis, it's also important that within your levels, no, within your regions, no, within your cities, within your provinces, and within your communities, you are able to share this information so that our communities will always be informed. But I guess what is important right now is to recognize that it's not only the accuracy and correctness of information that are important. It's also important that we provide the right context for this information. So sometimes tama at kompleto, no, yung binibigay nating impormasyon, pero nagtataka tayo dahil hindi pa rin maintindihan o hindi maunawaan, no, ng ating mga stakeholders, no, ng ating mga kababayan, kung bakit o ano ang implikasyon nitong mga impormasyon na ito dahil hindi sila nabibigyan, no, ng tamang konteksto. And when we say right context, it's important that we are able to connect, no, the information with the situations, no, in our regions, in our divisions, and our schools. So it's important that we are able to provide, no, not only the information, but also probably provide some perspectives and insights, no, with regards to the information. So I think this is one way of really making the information that we are sharing a more positive, having a more positive perspective, a more positive image, no. So sabi ko nga, kasama sa trabaho natin is really to promote, no, our department, no, our agency to our stakeholders. Promote in a sense that we would like to highlight the good things, no, and really counter or oppose, no, the negative views that some of the outfits in the mainstream media are portraying about DepEd. So importante, no, katulad nga ng palaging sinasabi ng ating kalihim na kailangan maipakita naman natin yung mga magagandang bagay, no, yung mga positibong bagay na ginagawa ng ating kagawaran. Kasama na dyan, of course, yung ating mga victories, no. And when we say victories, these might be small victories, but still these are worthy for celebration, no. So for example, the way we are able to handle, no, the challenges of the COVID-19 during the height of the lockdowns, no, and are able to continue learning despite of the restrictions. And right now, we also would like to celebrate the victory of the way we are implementing our progressive expansion, so far as the face-to-face classes. And also, we'd like to celebrate the victories that we have individually, no, among DepEd personnel, teaching and non-teaching personnel. At kasama po dyan yung mga recognitions that we get, no, not only here in the country, but also in other, basically the entire global community, where we recognize our teachers, no, our personnels who are achieving in their own rights. So this I think is the important aspect of having this kind of activity is really to harmonize our initiatives and efforts in terms of the information that we are sharing to our public. And I acknowledge and we recognize the effort of our past, our public affairs service headed by Director June Gudoy for continuously initiating this kind of activity, this kind of convergence. And I think this is very important that we are able to sustain this kind of undertaking. And to our information officers, tuloy lang po yung ating pagsisikap na makapagbigay ng tamang impormasyon. At hindi lang tama, again, ulitin ko, hindi lang tama pero makabuluhang, tama at makabuluhang impormasyon na gusto nating ibahagi sa ating mga mamamayan at ito ang magpapakita ng mga magagandang bagay na nagaganap sa ating kagawaran. Of course, we recognize that hindi lahat maganda. Tanggapin natin na talagang merong mga bagay na nangyayari na hindi maganda o sabihin ay hindi positibo. Pero gayunpaman, kasama sa ating pagsisikap na itong mga negatibong bagay na nangyayari at ay mai-translate natin into opportunities. And when we say we translate this into opportunities, maganda na itong mga negatibo o hindi magandang bagay ay ma-translate natin sa oportunidad. Opportunity to learn, opportunity to improve. And that is, I think, what we would like to highlight insofar as our public image is concerned. So again, congratulations to our past. And again, I'd like to thank our resource persons who shared their time and insights this morning to provide us the latest updates and information with regards to these four important issues, election related, our PISA, our policies concerning the face-to-face classes, and the support that our department is providing for so that we can implement our progressive expansion of face-to-face classes. And we'd like again to congratulate our information officers and thank you for giving your time in participating to the second town hall series of EduAction. Muli, magandang umaga, maraming salamat at mabuhay tayong lahat.
Alright, maraming salamat po muli, Asek Garma. Bagaman hindi natin siya kasama this morning, hindi naman niya tayo binigo sa pamamagitan ng pagbibigay ng kanyang mensahe para sa ating lahat. So mabuhay po kayo, Asek Garma. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you po, Asek Garma. Atin din pong pinasasalamatan ang 1.3K active viewers natin na nakilahok sa ating programa ngayong araw. Talaga namang nakatutuwang isipin na kahit gaano man tayo ka-busy, pinagtutuunan pa rin ng panahon at energy ng ating mga regional information officers, division information officers, at syempre sa mga kapwa ko school information officers na makilahok sa ating town hall series.
At paalala din po sa ating mga kasama upang masiguro na makakatanggap po tayo ng certificates, siguraduhin lamang po na masagutan natin ang exit form na isisend namin through the comment section. Huwag kayong mag-alala, amin po itong ipipin sa ating FB group ngayong araw din para madali po ninyong makikita.
Ayan. And there you have it, our dear information officers. Lubos po kami nagpapasalamat sa Public Affairs Service sa pag-organize ng second session ng ating EduAction Town Hall Series upang masigurong informed ang ating mga information officers nationwide sa mga polisiya at programa ng ating kagawaran.
Yes, at ipinahahatid din po namin ang aming pasasalamat sa mga presenters natin ngayong araw na tunay na nagpakita ng mga daan tungo sa dekalidad at ligtas na edukasyon sa buong bansa.
Ako po ang inyong lingkod, Sir John Ponce A. Santiago, your teacher broadcaster and school information coordinator from SDO Bulacan.
At ako naman po si Lovelyn Algabre Ruiz, ang inyong teacher broadcaster mula naman sa SDO Olonga po. At ito ang second EduAction Town Hall Series. Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat at hanggang sa muli.